Have you ever noticed that just when life starts to feel really good, you start to wonder if there's something bad on the horizon? Or you even do something to mess things up, like pick a fight? That's actually not random. That's what's known as the upper limits problem, and it's one of the sneakiest ways that we sabotage our own joy. Today, I'm joined by award-winning author Tamar Hurwitz-Fleming to explore why we cap our happiness and how we can expand our threshold for joy using our own birthday as the perfect practice ground. Stay tuned for an insightful conversation that might just have you saying, yeah, I definitely do that. Why do I do that? Hello, my friend, and welcome to the Belong Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Jessica Long. I am a health coach specializing in perimenopause, a longtime fitness instructor, mama of two littles, and a wife. If you are a midlife woman wondering what the actual F is going on with your hormones, your emotions, your relationships, your career, and your life in general, then you belong here. Join me each week as I share my own personal stories of how I navigate this wild stage of life. I also bring in experts and fellow badass midlifers to share their incredible stories of career pivots, managing relationships, parenting, living a healthy lifestyle, and much more. So listen, if midlife has you feeling like you're just not yourself anymore and alone in the chaos, this podcast is for you. Grab your giant water bottle, snap on your weighted vest, and let's get to it. Tamar, I'm so interested in talking about why we sabotage our own joy. It just sounds so crazy that we do that, but I recognize it in myself. I can see it in other people. So I'm really interested to dive into this topic with you today. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for the warm welcome, Jessica.
Absolutely. Okay. So I want to just give a little bit of a personal reference to this. So I feel like in the last couple of years, and maybe it's where I am in my stage of life, but this whole concept of finding joy, find more joy has just been everywhere for me in my news feeds and my media feeds, in conversations with friends. And no doubt that's part of the reason why I chose joy as my word of the year last year. And that was the first time I'd ever chosen a word of the year. I kind of was dubious about that whole concept going into it. But it actually ended up being such an amazing guiding light for me and a mantra that I used. And I chose it because I have little kids, and I noticed that my mind was so often wandering into the future. You need to brush your teeth. You need to put your socks on. You need to tie your shoes. You need to get in the car. We need to go to school. It's always like the thing that we need to do was the focus instead of the sweetness of the moment. You know, I'm telling them they need to tie their shoes and they're trying to show me something that they just colored that they're really proud of or something like that. And I realized I feel like I'm missing the sweetness of the present and the sweetness of having these little kids. And I really don't want to look back and think I was never really there. My mind wasn't in the present. And when I read your book, this bubbled up for me because you talk about this concept called the upper limits problem, where we essentially cap our joy at a certain threshold. And I was like, what? I had never heard of that. But then it started making sense. And I started actually wondering, is this mind wandering a mechanism that we use to prevent ourselves from being in the present where the joy is actually happening? So I wanted to start by asking you to tell us, what is the upper limits problem and why do we do this?
So the upper limits problem is something that was first brought to my attention through a book called Conscious Loving by Kathleen and Gay Hendricks. It's about relationships. And they said that there's only so much good energy we can handle before we hit a ceiling and we start to feel uncomfortable for whatever reasons. We all have different upper limits where we can feel only as good, and then we've got to bring the energy down. It's just the way that we're wired. Typically it comes from childhood stuff. You know, I remember being a kid and being very open and relaxed in the moment, and then something came in to jar me out of that and kind of shake me up and even traumatize me a little bit. And that kept me in a protected state so that it didn't feel so safe to just be open and relaxed and joyful, because you had to be on guard for something coming in that might trip you up or might get you, right? Fear, basically. So whatever our issues are, and a lot of this stuff does come from childhood, as we know, and a lot of it is not even something we can point to or remember specifically, but we're so sensitive as children, and you know that being a mom. You know how sensitive your kids are to tones, to words, to behaviors. Even just physical energy can make a sensitive child sort of shrink from their expanded sense of being. And so what the upper limits problem teaches us is that rather than just hitting our ceiling, sometimes what we do is we will actively, so let me give you an example. Let me back up. This was a book about relationships. And so let's say that you are dating somebody for the first time. It's going really well. You had your first date on a Friday and it was so great. You had your second date on a Saturday. And then on Sunday, you had to see each other again. You were getting so much joy and expanded energy coming into your psyche that at a certain point by Sunday afternoon, you might hit your upper limits and not be able to handle that much joy without feeling like you need to bring it down because you're not comfortable with it. I'm not used to that much joy. I'm not used to that much goodness. I'm only used to this much. So let me bring it down. And what you might do subconsciously is suddenly get grumpy, pick a fight. You might suddenly conjure tripping and falling and hurting yourself. You might even make yourself sick over time. And so what the Hendricks recommend is that rather than drinking from the fire hose of all this good energy, take a break, step back, integrate. So if you're dating somebody on day one and then day two, take a break. Don't go see them on Sunday. Say, you know what, Sunday's for me. I'm going to go hang out with my friends, go walk at the beach. Integrate the good energy so that you can let it settle, so that you can go back into the ring and have more good energy come your way. And so basically, one of the things that they suggest is that the human point of evolution is to see how much good energy we can handle naturally, without drugs, without alcohol. How can we expand our tolerance for more and more joy, just a little bit at a time? Because it can actually be overwhelming to us. We don't trust it. We're waiting for the other shoe to drop. We all know that feeling. Our life is great. We have what we want, but we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's related to the upper limits problem. We just can't believe we can have this much goodness. And so maybe we actually subconsciously drop the other shoe to just get the stress over with. Like, I know it's going to drop. Let me just make something happen to bring the energy down so I can be more comfortable in this limited state of joy. It's a big deal. And birthdays, I love birthdays because it's just one day a year that allows us to step into our joy as much as possible, amplify it as much as possible, and then the day after, integrate the good vibes that happened, integrate the joy, and then let it all settle and then get on with the rest of our lives. So I really love birthdays as an opportunity to practice raising our upper limits, raising that ceiling of how much joy we can handle and absorb without feeling the need to bring it down. Because birthdays are just a 24-hour period.
So your book is called How to Have a Happy Birthday. I'm showing it to everyone who's watching this on Spotify or YouTube. And so are you suggesting that we can handle more joy in a shorter time frame? So it's almost like we're titrating the ability to push that limit out, and then we have to come back so that, like you said, we can integrate or just dial ourselves back to that level that we're more comfortable with. And that's how we can, over time, if we keep practicing that over time, we can push that limit out. But our birthdays only come around once a year. So then how are we actually pushing this limit out in a way that can affect us more in our daily lives?
Well, that's for you to decide, right? But at least let's start with our birthday. Sometimes, the word joy is a really big word, and I'm into that word. It is so big, it can be overwhelming. Like, I am not capable of joy on any daily basis. Maybe once in a while I have joyful moments. I mean, I'm speaking this theoretically, but also even personally. I don't have joy throughout my day every day. That's kind of a lot, right? I have joyful moments. I get mindful of my joyful moments and I try and amplify them when they're there. I almost take a snapshot of this moment. Like, look at my dog being so cute right now. I just want to scream. Let me amplify this joy of this moment by being present for it. Much like you said, you wanted to be present for your children. A lot of us don't even know how to step into joy. A lot of us feel like, I don't even know where to begin. But a birthday gives us permission to press the pause button on all the responsibilities in our life as parents, as caretakers, as workers, as children, whoever we are. Press the pause button so that we can put ourselves in the center of our day, one day a year, and do what delights us, do what amplifies our joy.
And so many people listening right now are cringing. No, I don't want to do that, right? And that's exactly what we're talking about. They're hitting their upper limit, even just thinking about being the center of attention. And so many people, as you mentioned in your book, sabotage their birthdays. And I was so guilty of some of these that you brought up. First of all, tell us how we sabotage it so people understand. And then we kind of talked about why we're doing that, but why specifically with our birthday?
Well, okay, and let me just back up a quick second, because I think I said something that might have been misunderstood when you said people are cringing because they don't want to be the center of attention. You don't have to be the center of attention on your birthday if you want to be solo or if you want to have one other person, but you get to put yourself in the center of your life. I'm saying put the attention on you. You don't have to go step into a room of 100 people and have them all sing to you while you cringe. So I just want to make that clarity. Your birthday is for you to decide what you want to do, what brings you joy. In terms of why we sabotage our birthdays, again, I believe it comes back to a lot of childhood experiences. We all know that we're special on our birthdays, whether it's a spiritual recognition, I mean, this is the day my life began, Or we see the way society treats birthdays. We see it when we're in school and other people, it's their birthday and the excitement that they have. We know birthdays are special. But if we're a child and we wake up on our birthday full of hope and expectation that we're going to be special and nothing happens, or we get yelled at, or we get disappointed, or people forget. I mean, there's all sorts of stories of ways that we're just dismissed on our birthday. And even if it happens just once, it can shut us down. You know, we're sensitive like sea anemones when we're children. So one little poke, I'm just going to shut down this birthday hope and joy and expectation that I had, but got really disappointed. For any of your listeners that don't like their birthday and haven't for a really long time, I encourage you to consider taking a step back in your memory and asking yourself what might have happened in your childhood to give you messages that you're not worth celebrating. Your birthday's not important. It's just another day. And, don't be a big shot and don't make a big deal out of it, because those messages can come. And I'm sorry to say that those are very damaging messages that then shut us down for the rest of our birthday experiences, for the rest of our lives. It does not have to be that way. We all deserve to flourish and shine one day a year on our birthday. It's the day to celebrate us. It's the day our life began. We're all miracles. We all get to celebrate ourselves, but it's up to us to take charge of the day and make it be what we want. And in terms of sabotaging, so getting back to your question, we're all on a spectrum, whether we're birthday positive or birthday negative or birthday avoidant, and we're somewhere in the middle. All of us are somewhere in there. For those of us that have a birthday avoidant reaction, we don't like our birthdays. As our birthday comes and we start to feel the energy approach us, because it does, and we start to feel the anxiety and maybe the birthday blues, we're going to find all sorts of ways to keep that energy away from us. We don't want to have a happy birthday because we don't believe we can have one. So we ignore it. We don't tell people about it. We don't plan for it. Like maybe this year I decide, okay, I'm going to try and have a happy birthday. I heard this lady on the podcast and I'm going to try. But I woke up on my birthday and guess what? My friends weren't available to celebrate with me. Or the restaurant I wanted to go to was booked, or the massage I wanted wasn't available. Well, yeah, you didn't plan. You got to plan, right? So you got to plan for success when it comes to your birthday. So there's all sorts of ways we sabotage our birthday without even realizing it, because in the back of our mind, we don't believe we actually deserve to have a happy birthday. I'm curious to ask you, what are some of the sabotage techniques you used when it came to your birthday?
Not telling people about it, and then being disappointed that people weren't reaching out and saying happy birthday. Yes. And it's funny because I'm just a dates person. So I remember all of my close friends' birthdays. I don't need them in my calendar. I know when they are. I reach out, I say happy birthday. And I know not everybody's like that, and I don't hold them to that. But I also don't like to go out and tell everyone it's my birthday, it's my birthday. And interestingly, this year I did, and it was very outside of my comfort zone, but it was actually, I think I found comfort in it, or I had a veil because it was about the podcast and it was a little promotion I was doing around the podcast. But even still, even just publicly saying it's my birthday felt so uncomfortable. And I don't mind celebrating my birthday. And also this year, after reading your book, I realized, I think I did this year right, because last year was a disaster for a lot of reasons. And I realized a lot of them were outward facing. I didn't hear from people that I expected to or wanted to. And this year I decided I'm going to plan my whole day. It's going to be all the things I love to do. I'm going to go to one of my places in Napa that I like with my husband. I'm going to get a workout in and a massage. We're going to sit by the pool and have a nice lunch. And then I'm going to come home and eat cupcakes with my kids when they get home from school. That's what I want to do. And I hardly looked at my phone. It didn't matter who reached out because I was taking care of myself. And that was maybe one of the first times that I feel like I did a good job. And I know you talk about that in your book, that you have to take charge.
Yeah, you do. Because I've done that too, where I'm sitting and I'm waiting. Who loves me? Who's going to remember it's my birthday? Oh, they don't love me. I feel sorry for myself. That's a setup, folks. That's a setup. Take charge of your own day. If I want friends to know it's my birthday, I'm like, hey, my birthday's coming up in 2 weeks. Will you come have lunch with me? Or, hey, my birthday's coming up and I'm going to be out of town, but I would love a little recorded video memo that you can send me, because I'm going to be I actually am going to be overseas on my next birthday when I turn 60. It's a big one. And I'm having my husband gather all these little video clips so that when I'm in India, far from home, on a completely different time zone, I can get these birthday greetings for a big milestone birthday. I'm going to set that up. I'm enlisting my husband to help me. But there are ways that we can invite people to celebrate us. And yes, it can feel vulnerable vulnerable at first, especially if we've been avoiding our birthdays or feeling like we're not worthy of the love and the attention, or we feel like we're being self-centered or narcissistic or selfish, all these negative words we put on it. It's just one day a year and we all get it. And so what can we do to plan for a day that's what we want it to be and then have the joy? And it sounds like you had a wonderful birthday because you planned it exactly the way you wanted. And yes, that's exactly what I write about in my book, to help people have happier birthdays.
And it sounds like this is just one example of how we can be positive about ourselves, celebrate things about ourselves. So the birthday is a great example for how to do that. But as I'm listening to you talk about how children are like sea anemones, and the birthday example, like if they had one birthday that didn't go well, but I'm thinking that this probably applies in so many different areas of our life where we don't feel comfortable celebrating ourselves or bringing any attention to ourselves for accomplishments that we've made or things that we've succeeded in or that we're proud of. So I can see how this is a metaphor for bigger things in life too.
Yeah, and it's a good practicing ground. I mean, that's what I'm saying. So when I write about the upper limits and how birthdays give us a perfect opportunity to confront the upper limits head on, how much joy can I handle just for today? And then it's over. Like, I don't have to raise my joy ceiling every day of the year. I'm talking about just on my birthday, when my energy's already lifted, the spirit's in alignment, the universe is open to me. Everybody's going to radiate joy to me if I tell them it's my birthday. Everybody's happy for you when it's your birthday. You tell a stranger it's your birthday, oh, happy birthday. They're going to light up and feel happy that you told them. So it's just something instinctive that we all know, that when our life began, the day we took our first breath and entered into this lifetime, how sacred is that? You were at your children's birth. You know how sacred that moment is. Of course, we want to celebrate birthdays. Of course, there's extra special energy that day. So it's a great opportunity to practice turning up the volume on your joy under your own control. And when you start to realize, like, oh, I had a great day. I planned the massage. I went out to Napa. I had the cupcakes under my own control. Guess what? That can inform you for other days of the year, if you so choose.
Exactly. We're practicing for the rest of life.
Yeah.
It reminds me too, on the same day that I was prepping this interview to talk to you, my nanny brought my kids home and said, today is my great aunt's 104th birthday.
Wow.
And she called me just to say hi and chat. And I said, she's figured it out. She's 104. And she finally figured it out that in order for me to have a happy birthday, I want to talk to my family members, especially those I don't see very often. So I'm going to reach out and call them. And I loved that. I just thought that was so, I don't know. It was like the universe telling me that this was the right thing to be talking about. It was really sweet. I do want to look at this through the lens of parenting, which I think can also help us help ourselves, because it's easier for us to sometimes help our children and want them to have a happy birthday. And you give some examples in this book of parents who do help their kids have happy birthdays, but then when it's their own birthday, they minimize it. They don't really accept the birthday wishes. You talk about a mother who would never tell her age. Tell us that story and how that affected her daughter, and then how her daughter felt about her birthday.
So a lot of women of the generation born probably in the 1930s and even 40s, pre-baby boomer, are very attached to their self-worth being related to their youth, especially if they were attractive women. We all know that society treats aging as a four-letter word, especially if we're women. And so that when we start to get older and our looks change, and maybe we're not as desirable as we were when we were younger, as attractive, we start to feel like our value dissipates. We start to feel invisible. We start to feel like we're not worthwhile anymore. These are all stories that society tells us that we may experience. And that's a whole nother conversation that I challenge directly. But this particular woman, she would not tell her age. Her children did not know how old she was. She refused to admit her age because to her, aging was a bad thing. Aging meant that she was getting further and further away from her achievement in life, which was very looks oriented, which got a lot of attention from society for that. So she didn't celebrate her birthdays. She didn't tell her age to her children. And her daughter, who was my age, grew up having a very dim expectation around birthdays. Birthdays weren't a big deal. Her family would celebrate them for her, but she took on her mother's attitude around aging. She wasn't particularly against aging herself, but she just through osmosis had inherited her mom's beliefs around aging and that birthdays weren't a big deal and didn't need to be celebrated. And it was only when she started having conversations about it, and actually I was one of those people she had a conversation with, that challenged this idea that birthdays needed to be dim, that aging was bad. She didn't even have awareness that she was being basically programmed by her mom's fear of aging into her own birthday experience. And once that reality came clear to her, she separated her experience from her mother's and she started to have happy birthdays because she realized her mother's issues around aging were her mother's, not hers.
It got me thinking about how common it is that we celebrate our kids' birthdays in such fun ways. We decorate the house, there's presents, maybe there's a party or a special experience, there's singing, there's family and friends involved. And then when it comes to ours, it's totally minimized. And what a mixed message that sends to our kids. Like, well, how come we're celebrating mine but not yours? My kids get so excited on my birthday. They just love birthdays, period. Do we get to have cake? And do we get to put a birthday hat on you and celebrate and take pictures? Are there presents? They just love anyone's birthday at this point. And I want them to love birthdays. And so I actually find myself celebrating my birthday a little more than I would have pre-kids for their benefit, because I do not want to give them the message that we stop celebrating our birthdays at 22 years old or whatever.
That's right. And you're actually role modeling when you embrace your birthday and plan for it like it's a major holiday, which it is, and you decorate the house for you, putting up the happy birthday banners, even creating a birthday altar for yourself with pictures of you from childhood and mementos and candles and flowers and creating something sacred on your own behalf. You're role modeling for your kids what it looks like to get older and still have birthdays. Maybe it's not birthday parties at Chuck E. Cheese with the pizza and the clown, but it's something equally joyful for you at this particular stage in your life. And I think that's very important to role model for your kids.
I agree. And I realize that more after reading your book. Okay, I want to ask specifically about our friends with birthdays in December, because I can tell you almost everyone I know who has a birthday in the month of December does not like their birthday. And I always feel so bad because my birthday is in June, which is like the perfect distance away from all the major holidays happening, right? I mean, it was always right after school ended, so a lot of my friends weren't around for my birthday party. So I guess there's that. But I've always loved my birthday. And I always feel bad for my friends who just happen to have been born in December, that they feel like they can't really celebrate because everybody's focus is elsewhere. Do you have any specific advice for people born in December?
I do. That's a common experience for many people, especially the closer they get to Christmas or New Year's. And you know, we're not here to have other people make our birthday happy. It's up to us to make our birthday happy. And if your birthday's in December, you have to make extra effort to carve out time and space to decorate your home for your birthday, to have your birthday celebration be what you want it to be. Sometimes our friends aren't available to come have parties with us, let's say because school lets out or they're traveling to see family. Well, then you might want to have a birthday party at the very beginning of the month, even though your birthday might be 3 weeks later, but then celebrate your birthday on the day by creating space, by figuring out what will bring you joy, whether you're with a small group or yourself or another person, and make that happen. You just have to be extra creative and don't just shrug your shoulders and say, oh, I'm a victim to being born in December. You were born in December. That's actually divinely planned. There's no accidents that you were born in December. You just have to be more creative to make it work. Find ways to elevate the day, to make it special, to ritualize it so that it might just be time you're spending with yourself, but it's time that's very uplifting to you. We all have activities that we do by ourselves that are uplifting to us. Figure out what that is for you and then try and amplify that on your birthday if there aren't a lot of people around to celebrate. And if it is a solitary birthday, because literally nobody's around, I mean, that's typically unusual, but it can happen. It still doesn't mean you don't get to celebrate. Get yourself a cake, buy your favorite cake, put a candle on it, go into the community and talk to people. Let them know it's your birthday. Go to the dog park and play with the dogs. There's all sorts of ways that you can raise your energy on your birthday. You just have to figure out what will bring you joy. And we're all different with that. Right? But don't let the December date give you an excuse to take a pass on your birthday, because it's up to you to work that much harder to make it the joyful, sacred day that it is.
Okay, so no excuses, December people. You heard it here first. And I think you do mention in the book, like whether you have a celebration or party or travel or whatever, to celebrate your birthday on another day, it actually is really important to celebrate on the day. Tell us why.
So I'm an astrologer, and on the day of your birthday, the sun lines up exactly where it was the day you were born. So even astrologically speaking, there's a perfect alignment of your sun sign with the sun. So there's just sort of that. But spiritually speaking, I mean, it's the day you came in. So there's a real alignment with your spirit on your birthday that happens on your birthday, right? I mean, think of Christmas. We don't celebrate Christmas December 19th. We celebrate it December 25th. We don't celebrate it December 27th. We celebrate it December 25th. There's a concentration of energy there for that holiday. It's the same with your birthday. By the way, Christmas, let's just call out, what is it? It's a big old birthday party, right? We're celebrating somebody's birthday, and it's the biggest holiday in the United States. Whether people observe it or not, it's still the biggest holiday in the United States, and it's a birthday. So your birthday is sacred, and it's worth celebrating, and it is the day. It is the day, even if it's a Tuesday. And one way to do this is, when I say plan for it as if it's a major holiday, I mean that. In the same way that you don't wake up on Thanksgiving and say, okay, what's for dinner and who's coming? You plan for your birthday at least a month in advance. Take the day off work if you can. Take the day off your normal responsibilities and duties if you can, so that you can really have the day be open to be what you want it to be. And then allow yourself to dream into what feels delightful and joyful for you and indulge in that.
And so I'm guessing, due to your response here, that celebrating your half birthday is not the same, especially for the December people, because I know a lot of them like to do that.
Well, they can, and here's the rules about birthday. There are no rules. You get to do whatever you want to do. I wrote a self-help book because a lot of people I realized needed help celebrating their birthdays. But at the end of the day, whatever raises your energy, whatever brings you joy and helps you feel celebrated as you, that's a good thing to do. I acknowledge my half birthdays. I don't celebrate them. I just acknowledge them. I like that they're the direct opposite day. And yes, if the December babies want to have June birthday parties, go ahead. But that does not mean ignore your birthday in December.
Okay. Well, I always celebrate my half birthday because it's Christmas.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Sometimes I say oh, thanks guys. No, really, it's too much. We don't need a tree and all these presents for my half birthday, but thanks.
That's great. I love that.
Okay. So for anyone who's listening is thinking, all right, I've been sabotaging my birthday. I'm ready to give this a try. Where should she start?
Well, you mentioned my book, How to Have a Happy Birthday. So it's available wherever books are sold, but I also, got published this year, the Happy Birthday Workbook. And this is a really good journal type book where it asks questions that help you dive into what some of your birthday issues might be, because a lot of us don't actually know. It's and they don't even know where to begin. So by asking some thoughtful questions of yourself and having an honest conversation with yourself, you can start to expose where some of your birthday pain might come from, where some of your fears of aging might come from. And then we turn it around and we start to look at the positive side of aging. We look at the positive side of being here on this planet. I heard your podcast recently about purpose. What does it look like to think about our purpose? And birthdays are a wonderful time to use that personal new year as a time to think about, am I living a purposeful life? Am I living the life that I was born to live? If so, great. If not, what can I do in the coming year to create a bit more of what I want so that I can have more of the life I want? And I don't mean big, massive changes unless you're ready to do that, but change starts small in a small manner. So I think birthdays are a really good opportunity for that kind of self-reflection, but you got to plan. If all of your listeners are saying, okay, I'm ready to have a happier birthday, start thinking about what you would want to do, regardless of when your birthday is. I mean, your birthday's in June. It's a long way away from now. It doesn't matter. You can still start thinking about what you want to do. But for those people whose birthdays are coming up in the next month, now's a perfect time to start planning and let thoughts bubble up. You may not know right away. I don't always know what I want to do on my birthday. And, I wrote the book and I still don't always know what I want to do on my birthday, but with enough thinking and options, depending on where I am, because I'm in different places, depending on what museum exhibits might be around, depending on what friends might be in town, I start to, depending on what day of the week it is. If my birthday falls on a Monday, a lot of restaurants are closed that I might want to go to. Also, I'm a winter baby, so this idea of having a swim party doesn't exist for me. So that option is out. So thinking about what's possible for you based on when you're born, and then get excited about it. Start thinking about what's exciting, and then plan for it to happen.
Okay, you heard it here first. You got to start planning. And I like the idea of the workbook and the reflections, because I think a lot could come out of that. And then the birthday being the great example for practicing, as we talked about. Tamar, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with us. Where can everyone find you and get your book?
So my book's available wherever all books are sold. You can find the book and the workbook on Amazon. And also go to my website, howtohaveahappybirthday.com. There's an ebook, there's an audiobook, paperback, hardback. I'm also a birthday coach. I recently hung my shingle. So if people want any help about a month prior to their birthday to figure out what some of their birthday blocks are and what they might want to do to have a happy birthday, I'm available for that. A month before your birthday and then about a week after, I want to get back on the phone and figure out what worked, what didn't, and what you learned to take forward into the coming year. So I can be found, and all of that can be found on howtohaveahappybirthday.com.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for coming on. Such a fun conversation.
Thanks, Jessica.
All right, my friend, here are a few key takeaways from my conversation with Tamar. 1, we all have an upper limits problem, that invisible ceiling on how much joy we'll allow ourselves before we start to sabotage it. 2, birthdays are like a magnifying glass for this pattern. Whether we ignore the day, set ourselves up for disappointment, or cringe at being celebrated, we're really bumping up against our own worthiness. 3, the good news, birthdays are also the perfect practice ground. By planning ahead and celebrating in a way that feels authentic, we can expand our threshold for joy, not just on one day, but all year long. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend who dreads her birthday, because maybe it's time she had a different story about celebrating herself. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.